The transfer saga surrounding Morgan Rogers is shaping up to be the defining deal of the English summer window. That two London clubs are chasing the same player from the same city, that one of them has a clear advantage that the other cannot close, and that a 23-year-old from Walsall, who just had the best month of his professional life wearing an England shirt on the biggest stage the sport offers, is about to make a decision that will shape the next 5 years of his career and potentially the direction of two clubs who are both desperately trying to close the gap on the teams above them. Chelsea want Morgan Rogers. Arsenal want Morgan Rogers. Aston Villa want to keep Morgan Rogers. And the question that everyone in English football is trying to answer right now is, who actually gets him? So what's really happening here? Let's go through every layer of this because the reality of where this deal actually stands is significantly more nuanced than the headlines suggest. Start with the player himself, because Rogers is the one making the decision, and understanding what he wants requires understanding where he came from and how fast he has moved in the last 2.5 years. He came through the Manchester City's academy, one of the best development systems in world football, the same pipeline that has produced professionals for clubs across Europe for over a decade. But Rogers never got a first-team minute at the Etihad, not one. He was loaned to Bournemouth, to Blackpool, to Lincoln City, and then in the summer of 2023, having made 0 senior appearances for City, he was sold permanently to Middlesbrough in the Championship for a reported £1.5 million. At that point, there was no indication that this particular player was going to become one of the most wanted attackers in the Premier League within 3 years. Then, Aston Villa paid £15 million to bring him to Villa Park in January 2024. And what happened next is a story that has Chelsea and Arsenal both spending this summer trying to convince him, Aston Villa, and each other that they're the right destination. Under Unai Emery, Rogers became a different player. Not a different footballer in terms of natural ability, because the ability was always visible to anyone who watched him at Middlesbrough, but a different professional. More disciplined, more intelligent in his positioning, more capable of contributing in the moments that define matches rather than just the moments that are comfortable. He finished last season with contributions across all competitions that put him among the top performers in the Premier League by the most meaningful attacking metrics. Goals, assists, chances created, ball progression. He ticked boxes in every category. And then came the World Cup. And Rogers, who went to this tournament without any guarantee of starting minutes, ended up being one of England's most consistently effective performers. The cross for Gordon's goal against Argentina in the semifinal was the moment that the global football audience that hadn't been paying attention to Villa Park finally took notice. But anyone who had watched the group stage knew this was coming. Rogers had been creating danger in every match. Not through flashy moments, but through smart movement, intelligent positioning, and the kind of delivery from wide areas that England hadn't consistently had in years. He was asked about his value during the tournament. He said he doesn't think he's worth the reported price tag. That sentence and what it reveals about how this player thinks about himself and his career is more important to understanding where he ends up than almost any other detail in the story. A player who publicly says he doesn't think he's worth £130 million is not someone who is going to chase the highest bidder. He's someone who is going to chase the right fit. Here's where things get interesting, because Chelsea and Arsenal are offering fundamentally different things to Morgan Rogers right now, and the gap between those two offers is not primarily financial. Arsenal are Premier League champions. That is the single most important sentence in this transfer story. Mikel Arteta won the title last season, ended a wait that had stretched across the better part of 2 decades, and will play Champions League football next season. Arsenal understand Rogers primarily as the long-term solution on the left side of their attack, believing he possesses the qualities to elevate their front line for years to come. Personal terms have been moving in the right direction. Arsenal are increasingly confident of the player's preference. Chelsea, meanwhile, are managed by Xabi Alonso, who took the job this summer after his extraordinary run at Bayer Leverkusen. They won the Club World Cup. They are a genuinely ambitious project with serious investment and a manager whose tactical credentials are among the most impressive of any coach in European football. But they did not finish in the Premier League's top 4 last season. They will not play Champions League football in 2026-27 unless they earn it on the pitch this coming season. And that distinction, Champions League versus no Champions League, is the wall that Chelsea have been running into repeatedly in their pursuit of Rodgers. If Arsenal match Villa's asking price and the player's preference genuinely lies with a Champions League destination, Chelsea's pursuit faces a structural obstacle that money alone cannot overcome. Now let's be honest about the strongest case for Chelsea, because it deserves to be made fairly. Xabi Alonso is one of the most exciting managerial appointments in European football right now, and his track record of developing attackers at Leverkusen was extraordinary. Players under his system consistently reached personal statistical highs they hadn't approached before. The project at Stamford Bridge, backed by serious investment, is building towards something that could be genuinely competitive at the highest level within 2 seasons. And there is something to be said for joining a project in construction rather than a project already at its peak, because the opportunities for individual impact are often greater when a team is climbing than when it has already arrived. Villa valued Rodgers at around £100 million during the summer initially, and sources have suggested that fee could now stretch to £130 million given his World Cup performances and the increased competition for his signature. Villa are under pressure from financial fair play compliance to generate revenue, but they are also acutely aware that selling one of their most important players undervalues a squad they're trying to build into consistent Champions League contenders. The contract runs until June 2030. Villa have leverage. They are not forced sellers, and they have made clear through multiple reports that Rodgers is the player they would be least interested in selling, even at an extremely high fee. That's the tension at the heart of this story. A club that doesn't want to sell, a player whose preference is increasingly pointing toward a specific destination, 2 pursuing clubs with very different things to offer, and the fee that is high enough to make this one of the most significant transfers of the English summer, regardless of which direction it goes. But there's another angle that nobody is talking about enough. Rodgers himself said during the World Cup that he doesn't think he is worth his reported price tag. That's not false modesty. That's a young man with an unusually clear-eyed understanding of his own situation, telling anyone who was listening that he is not approaching this decision the way a player who is chasing a big contract approaches it. He knows what he wants from his next move, and what he wants, based on every piece of reporting around this story, is to play at the highest level possible, in the best possible system, for the best possible chance of competing for the things that matter most in club football. The Champions League is the thing that matters most in club football. Every footballer who has played at the level Rodgers has reached in the last 18 months understands that. You don't get to hold a banner on the MetLife Stadium pitch in a World Cup semifinal on the night your teammate crosses for what you both thought was the winning goal and come away from that experience not understanding what it feels like to compete for the biggest prizes. That experience sharpens clarity. It accelerates decisions that might otherwise take months to make. What do you think? Does Morgan Rodgers end up at Arsenal, as the current evidence suggests, or is there something about Chelsea's project under Xabi Alonso that makes the bridge a more compelling destination than the Champions League gap suggests? Is £130 million a realistic fee for a player who publicly said he doesn't think he's worth that amount? Or does his World Cup performance change that conversation entirely? And if Arsenal do get Rodgers, does that make them genuine title contenders again next season? Or does it depend on what else they add to the squad around him?